Hey everybody, I am going to introduce you to one of my favorite foods, which is kale. Now, kale was not typically a food that we consumed until relatively recently. It was used as a garnish. So, you would see it on the side of your plate or along salad bars, places like that to just add a little bit of a pretty look to things, right? But it was never eaten because it is pretty tough and bitter considerably. But it has increased in popularity as a food that is worthy of consumption, simply because it is super nutritious and packed with the fiber. Now, the cabbage family, which includes broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale, radicchio, every kind of cabbage under the planet, chard, all those things, those are in the cabbage family and they are super, super good for us. They actually have toxins in them that makes them poisonous to some animals, but our bodies actually like those things, those chemicals that kill other animals. We have a digestive tract that can digest it, and our gut and our body loves the nutrients we get from it. Kale has a lot of iron and things in it. So even though this plant is technically poisonous to quite a number of animals, for us and our digestive tract, it is a fantastic food to eat. So it's considered a superfood. One of the things about kale is because it's so new is people don't know how to work with it. They hear it's healthy and great and stuff like that, but they don't know how to process it. First off, look at those giant stems, right? But they also don't know what the heck to use it with. Like, what does it taste like? What do I add it to? Do I eat it raw? Do I eat it cooked? What would I put it in? Because it is so relatively new. So I'm going to be sharing some of my kale recipes with you, just because they're yummy. So when it comes to processing kale, that's my video today. As you can see, you have these big, thick stems along it with the leaves coming off of your stems. Now, kale is considered a dirty vegetable. And what that means is that all these little tiny folds in here, as you can see, all this wavy, curly stuff, really traps stuff. Pesticides, fungicides, herbicides, like the whole 9 yards, bacteria, bird poop, whatever. Even though it is washed before you get it at the store, you do need to wash it again. It's a good idea. And how do you wash it well? Well, I have a little trick here to show you. So, first things first that I like to do is just go ahead and strip these lower leaves off. Kind of hard to do one-handed here. I wish I had a cameraman, but I kind of don't. But you can just tear this off. And then as kale goes up, the leaves get bigger and bigger and more attached to each other. See, those lower ones, you'll see here, they're not attached, right? But as you go up your leaf, they are attached. So just break it off once these things get close together. And there you go. So when I'm done doing that with all my kale leaves, to really be sure they get clean, I use a lettuce spinner like this. They're great. And it's got this in it for you to put your veggies in. And then this spins it around and the G-forces dry it. All of the water flies out into this container and this remains dry. So I just take my kale and any other dirty veggie. Lettuce can kind of be, and spinach can be the same way. Excuse my dog there. So just swish that around really well, right? Swish it around really well. And just kind of soak that for a little bit. And then you can just lift it out, voila, and dump out your dirty water, like so. And you can do that a couple of times. Or some people use veggie rinsers, whatever you feel like. I prefer not to use a bunch of added extra chemical BS. But then, of course, once you're done swishing that around, kale's real tough. It's not going to get bruised or damaged. You know how to use your lettuce spinner. You push. This one has a stopper on it. And voila. Your kale is a lot drier, right? So that is how I process and wash my kale. Is just gonna swish, soak it around. I sometimes do it twice. If you're going to cook it, go ahead and use warm water in there too to help it get cleaner. But definitely like spinach. Unfortunately, spinach is really fragile, so you can't be as aggressive as you do with kale, which means that when you process your spinach, you want to be sure you don't put too much in and that you're super gentle about swishing it, or you can just do this kind of thing like a washing machine, right? And just kind of swish it around. Spinach is grown in sand. It loves sandy soil, gritty soil, so it's going to inevitably have some sand and grit in there, so it's kind of a dirty veggie. So this is how I make it super fast and super easy to get off any debris that could be caught in any kind of vegetable. Like I said, kale, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, they're all real tough. Even broccoli is pretty tough. So you can really swish them around with your hands. But your lettuce and your spinach and your softer leaves, you're going to want to just go ahead and swish spin it. You can jam pack this with kale and toss it around and really work with it. But your spinach and your lettuce and things like that, you want to put less in there and swish it around. But then, of course, like you saw, you just pull it out, dump the water out, and then you can spin whatever you made dry, right? So that is how I process kale. And in a minute here, I am going to show you one way I love to use kale. So stay tuned. Okay, so here is our kale washed. And I'm going to show you how I further process it. So you have these real tough spines. When they're thin like this versus the fat ends, sometimes, you can just work with that and just chop that up and eat it. It's not going to hurt you. But for my particular use, I kind of like to cut it out for this recipe. Kind of hard to do one-handed, but you're basically just going to take your knife and cut this off. I'm going to tear it off for you, which I don't recommend because it doesn't work very well. But in any case, you can just go ahead and slide your knife along that spine on either side and remove the stem right out if you don't want that big tough stem. Super great source of fiber. But what I am going to do with my kale is put it on tacos. I love kale on my tacos. Right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut up the kale. Boy, do I hate the way my hair gets everything. I'm going to cut up the kale pretty small and then put it in a pan with, you can just do it with water. It's probably best to do it with water first. And simmer that up just lightly until it's kind of wilted, right? And then I am going to add my extra lean ground beef. I go ahead and pay more for that extra lean. It's worth it. Because your regular ground beef is pretty high fat. So you can see that's 93% lean, 7% fat. Way better than 80 something percent and 20% fat, whatever it is. Yeah. So go ahead and pay extra if you're going to do ground beef. It's just worth it. And to keep the cholesterol numbers down. And go ahead and pay that little extra. So I got my Ultraline. I'm thawing it in the sink here. But yeah, I am going to saute up this kale in a little bit of water here. And when you're working with vegetables, they say it's better, cooked vegetables are better because this is pretty tough and the nutrients. Kale has a tough waterproof covering on it. Kale, broccoli, the cabbage family is got this kind of bluish tint to it that you'll see, and that is actually waterproofing there, so it repels water. See, it's super tough and not easy to unlock those nutrients that are in it. So when you cook a vegetable, you make it softer and it helps to digest and release those nutrients for you. It makes it easier to digest, so you're more likely to get more nutrients out of it. The problem is in Grandma's day, this kind of stuff was boiled. So they boiled broccoli, boiled beans, boiled peas, boiled cabbage. They just boiled spinach. All the veggies were boiled. And the problem with that is that not only are they overcooked and the flavor is lacking, everybody knows spinach can get slimy, right? And then cabbage just loses its really crunchy texture. And kale won't get slimy, but it's definitely just ugh. But also, when you boil it, your nutrients have been pulled out of the plant itself, and it's all in the water. And then you scoop out your veggie, leaving behind all the nutrients in the water that you boiled it in. So this is a way that I choose to cook with things like cabbage and kale, is I am going to little bit of simmering going on here. Now, I like to go ahead and throw my ground beef in with it and just have my taco seasoning along with my kale in it. So that is one way I use kale that just turns out yummy. When you do add the taco seasoning and stuff to the ground beef, the kale doesn't really add any kind of gross flavor to it. It's pretty nice, but it's just packed with fiber. And I love it. That slight bitterness to it accentuates kind of the flavor of beef, which unfortunately, yeah, it's kind of a irony blood flavor, but this is packed with iron too. And so they accentuate each other, and it gets a really robust, yummy flavor. It really does. So you've got iron on top of iron. And iron, because we need it, it is a great flavor that our bodies crave to begin with. I trust McCormick taco seasoning. It doesn't have a whole lot of stuff in it. If you want to make your own taco seasoning from scratch, or any kind of Mexican seasoning, it's super easy. Just remember these 4 spices, okay? Mexican seasoning or Spanish seasoning is paprika, turmeric, and then I ran out of chili powder because I love it so much, but chili powder is in there, and then cumin is in there. I can't stand cumin. I don't like the taste of it, but that is a traditional Spanish spice that goes into it. So anytime you are making like taco, or you're doing fajitas, or enchilada sauce, things like that, these are the spices that you add to it to make those sauces. So the McCormick taco seasoning, you can see the color is the same. It's got that turmeric in it and stuff like that. I'm a huge paprika fan, and so I always add extra paprika to it. Paprika is not spicy, okay? It is sweet chilies. So it's got a real sweet, yummy flavor. Your chili powder has a little bit more of a kick to it. Not bad, though. But anyway, those are your basic seasonings to remember for any time you're cooking Spanish. Now, there's a lot of talk about Mediterranean diet. Spain is along that Mediterranean diet, and these spices are super healthy for you. And that's why. So, turmeric actually has a great anti inflammatory property. Who knew that, right? It is used in a lot of processed foods as color. They'll use annatto or they'll use turmeric. So those are two natural sources of yellow color, but the flavor of turmeric is real smooth. Tiny bit of a bitter taste to it, but packed with flavor. So there you go. I am going to add my meat to it after I simmer this up in a little bit of water. That will unlock the nutrients for me. And of course, it will still be in the container, right? I'm not dumping out the water from the cooked kale. I will add the meat to it, and those nutrients will stay in it. Any extra I have left over, yeah, you can freeze it up with the kale in it. It's not going to be a problem. So, another thing, you can lightly saute it in a little bit of water so that it's kind of wilty, and just throw that on the top of your taco too, instead of lettuce. That is super yummy too. So that is one excellent way to incorporate kale into your diet, because it does really go well with meat. It really does. It has kind of a meaty, earthy flavor to it, which tastes great with meat. So kale is one of those that I am loving to work with, and I actually end up craving this stuff if I don't get enough. So super high iron, super high fiber, all kinds of super nutrients, absolutely great for you. So it is dirty. Go ahead and do my recommended rinsing hack there. So, ladies and gentlemen, kale on your tacos. It really is fantastic. So there you go. There is kale, how to work with it, how to clean it, and one thing that I recommend you try adding it to. So take care, eat right, and don't get scammed.